He was the alpha no one dared challenge. Feared, respected, untouchable. But on the day the moon goddess marked him a mate, he shattered her in front of the entire pack with 3 cold words: "I feel nothing." She should have left. She should have been broken. Instead, she smiled and decided to teach the man who couldn't love how to fall. The night Aldric Blackmoor was born, the moon bled. Crimson light spilled across the northern territories like a wound torn open in the heavens. The pack's healers whispered prayers to the moon goddess as his mother screamed, her cries echoing through the ancient stone halls of Blackmoor Keep. Outside, wolves howled, not in celebration, but in warning. Something was wrong. The midwife who caught him felt it first, the unnatural cold emanating from the child's skin, as though winter itself had taken residence in his small body. His eyes, when they opened, were not the warm amber of his father's line, but ice blue, pale as frost, empty as a winter sky. "He doesn't cry," the midwife whispered, her hands trembling as she wrapped the silent infant. The pack's eldest seer entered the birthing chamber, her milky eyes seeing what others could not. She placed one gnarled hand on the child's chest and went rigid. "What is it?" Aldric's father demanded. "What's wrong with my son?" The seer's voice, when it came, was hollow, defeated. "The moon goddess has marked him. Born under the blood eclipse, he will be powerful beyond measure, feared, respected." She paused, and her next words fell like stones into still water. "But he will never feel the mate bond. Love will be a language he cannot speak, a fire that will never warm him." "That's impossible," the alpha snarled. "Every wolf feels the bond. It's our nature, our blessing from the goddess herself." "Not this one." The seer withdrew her hand, and for the first time in her long life, she looked afraid. "He will sense loyalty and deception, strength and weakness. But love?" She shook her head slowly. "Love will be silence, an empty room in a soul that should be full." The alpha stared down on his newborn son, this perfect, terrible thing that would inherit his pack, and wondered if a blessing could also be a curse. Aldric did not cry that night. He never would. 28 years later, Aldric Blackmoor stood in the great hall of his keep and felt absolutely nothing. The hall was prepared for a mating ceremony. Pine boughs woven through iron chandeliers, winter roses scattered across ancient stone, hundreds of candles casting dancing shadows across walls that had witnessed centuries of bonds being forged. The pack had gathered in their finest, anticipation thick in the cold air. They expected transformation, expected their emotionless alpha to finally crack open, to feel something, to become whole. The moon goddess, it seemed, had other plans. Aldric stood before the ceremonial altar, his expression carved from the same stone as his ancestral home. Tall and broad-shouldered, he wore the traditional black and silver of his line, his dark hair pulled back, his ice-blue eyes revealing nothing. Around him, pack members whispered excitedly, certain that tonight would change everything. They had no idea how right they were. The doors opened. She entered like dawn breaking over winter, quiet, inevitable, transforming everything without apparent effort. Lyanna Greywind, daughter of the Southern Territories, sent north as part of a territorial alliance, though everyone knew the true reason. The moon goddess had chosen her, had marked her as Aldric's mate weeks ago in dreams that left her breathless and aching. She wore white, traditional, expected, but the way she moved made Aldric's wolf sit up and take notice. Not submissive, not trembling with nerves. She walked with her shoulders back, her chin high, meeting the eyes of every pack member she passed as though daring them to find her wanting. Bold, Aldric thought distantly. Foolish, perhaps, but bold. She reached the altar, and for the first time their eyes met. Hers were forest green, flecked with gold, intelligent, assessing, waiting. The pack elder raised his hands, beginning the ancient words that would seal the bond. Aldric barely heard them. He was too busy analyzing the woman before him, the steady rhythm of her breathing, the slight elevation in her heart rate that betrayed nervousness she refused to show, the way her scent curled around him like smoke. Pine and wildflowers, clean and earthy. His wolf stirred, interested, but nothing else. No pull, no recognition, no invisible thread yanking him toward her like every mated wolf described. Just awareness, curiosity, clinical interest. "Do you accept this bond?" the elder asked, his voice resonating through the hall. "Do you claim this woman as your mate, your Luna, your chosen?" This was the moment when every other Alpha in history had felt the bond snap into place, had been overwhelmed by devotion so powerful it brought them to their knees. Aldric felt the weight of hundreds of eyes, felt the expectation pressing down like a physical thing, and felt nothing else. "I accept," he said, his voice steady and cold. Then, because he had never learned to lie, "But I feel nothing." The hall went silent, absolute, ringing silence. Lyanna's eyes widened, just for a moment, just enough to show that his words had landed like a blade between her ribs. But she did not flinch, did not cry, did not run. The elder stammered, "My Lord Alpha, perhaps if we complete the ceremony, the bond will—" "It won't." Aldric's gaze never left Lyanna's face, watching for the collapse, the tears, the inevitable breakdown. "I was born under the blood eclipse. The curse prevents me from feeling the mate bond. I thought—" He paused, something almost like regret flickering across his features. "I hoped the moon goddess might make an exception. She did not." Whispers erupted throughout the hall. Shock, horror, pity directed at the southern girl who'd traveled so far only to be rejected by fate itself. But Lyanna simply stood there, studying him with those keen green eyes. Then she did something that shocked every person in the room. She smiled, not warmly, not kindly, but with the sharp edge of challenge. "Tell me, Alpha Blackmoor," she said, her voice clear and steady, "do you believe everything you feel or don't feel is the final word on what's possible?" Aldric frowned. "I don't understand the question." "No," she agreed. "I don't suppose you do." She took a step closer, and he caught her scent more strongly. Wildflowers and something else, something that made his wolf pace restlessly. "You cannot feel the bond. Very well, I accept that." Relief flickered through the hall. She would leave, would return south, claim the rejection, spare them all the awkwardness. "But I am not leaving." The relief died. Aldric's eyes narrowed. "You would stay? Unbonded? Unclaimed?" "I would stay and prove something your curse-bound logic hasn't considered." She met his gaze without hesitation, without fear. "If your wolf cannot love me through fate's design, then I will make the man learn how through choice, through proximity, through every moment you're forced to see me as something more than an obligation you cannot feel." For the first time in years, perhaps ever, Aldric felt surprise. "You believe you can make me love you?" His voice was flat, but something shifted beneath the words. "That's remarkably arrogant." "No," Lyanna's smile sharpened. "It's remarkably determined. There's a difference." "This is madness," the elder interjected. "A bond cannot form through will alone. It's never been done. The moon goddess herself chose me." Lyanna turned to face the gathered pack, and Aldric saw steel beneath her calm exterior. "She chose me for him. She didn't make a mistake. Perhaps the curse isn't meant to prevent love. Perhaps it's meant to ensure it's earned, that it's real, that it's chosen rather than compelled. Look back at Aldric, and something in her expression made his chest tighten in a way he didn't understand. I will not beg for your affection, Alpha Blackmoor. I will not chase you or manipulate you or make myself small hoping you'll notice. But I will stay. I will be present. I will show you what it means to be chosen, not by fate, but by deliberate, conscious will. Her voice dropped lower, intimate despite the crowd. And when you finally feel something, when you finally understand what you've been missing, it won't be because the goddess commanded it. It will be because you decided I was worth it. The hall held its collective breath. Aldric stared at this woman, this stranger who should have been broken by his rejection, and felt the first stirrings of something he couldn't name. Not the bond, not love, but interest. Real, genuine interest in another person for the first time in his carefully controlled life. "Very well," he said slowly. "Stay, prove your theory. But understand, I am not kind, I am not warm, I am not capable of giving you what you seek." "We'll see," Lyanna replied, and there was something almost like amusement in her eyes. The ceremony concluded in awkward silence. No bonding bite, no claiming, no transformation. Just an alpha who couldn't feel, and a woman determined to make him. As the pack dispersed, whispering frantically, Aldric found himself watching Lyanna's retreating form and wondering what exactly he'd just agreed to, and why for the first time in his life, the silence in his chest felt less like peace and more like absence. Lyanna took up residence in the Luna's chambers, tradition, even if the bond remained incomplete. The rooms were beautiful in a cold northern way, stone walls softened by thick tapestries depicting ancient battles and hunts, a massive fireplace that roared against the perpetual chill, windows overlooking forests so dense they looked black beneath winter's grip. She did not redecorate, did not try to make the space hers. She simply existed in it, with the same quiet determination she'd shown in the great hall. And Aldric, despite himself, noticed. He noticed when she appeared in the strategy room during the morning council, sitting quietly in the corner, observing pack politics with those sharp green eyes. She never interrupted, never offered opinions unless directly asked, but her presence was felt, a disruption to his carefully ordered world. He noticed when she began walking the keep's battlements at dawn, wrapped in furs, her breath misting in the frozen air, alone, content in her solitude in a way that reminded him uncomfortably of himself. He noticed when she took meals in the common hall rather than her chambers, speaking easily with pack members of all ranks, warriors and servants alike, as though status meant nothing to her. But most of all, he noticed her scent. It lingered in corridors she'd walked hours before, clung to tapestries she'd brushed against, seemed to seep into the very stones of his keep until he couldn't escape it. Pine and wildflowers, and something uniquely her. His wolf liked it, more than liked it, craved it in ways Aldric found deeply unsettling. "You're distracted," his second-in-command Marcus observed one afternoon during a training session. Aldric blocked the practice blade with more force than necessary. "I'm focused." "On what? Because it's certainly not this bout." Marcus circled, his expression knowing. "The Southern girl. She's gotten under your skin." "Don't be absurd." "You watch her." Marcus lunged, and Aldric parried automatically. "When she walks through the hall, when she sits by the fire reading, when she—" "I'm aware of my surroundings. That's not the same as watching." "If you say so, my lord," but Marcus was smiling. "Though I notice you've ordered her chambers heated to precisely the temperature she prefers, and that the kitchen now stocks that particular blend of tea she favors, and that you've forbidden anyone from disturbing her morning walks. For someone you feel nothing for, you're remarkably attentive." Aldric's jaw tightened. "She's a guest. It's basic hospitality." "Right, hospitality." Marcus stepped back, lowering his blade. "Tell me, when was the last time you showed this much hospitality to anyone?" "Never." The answer was never, but Aldric didn't say it out loud. The first real conversation happened on a night when winter storms battered the keep. Aldric couldn't sleep, not unusual for him. He'd long ago learned that his mind worked better at night, when the demands of leadership quieted and he could think without interruption. He found himself in the library, intending to review old territorial maps. He found Lyanna instead. She sat curled in a massive chair before the fire, a book open in her lap, her expression distant. She wore a simple nightgown beneath a heavy robe, her dark hair loose around her shoulders. The firelight painted her skin gold, caught in her eyes, made her look less like a political pawn and more like something from ancient stories. She looked up when he entered, surprise flickering across her features. "Alpha, I didn't realize anyone else would be awake." "I could say the same." He moved further into the room, drawn by something he refused to examine. "Can't sleep?" "The storms are loud here, different from the south." She closed her book, marking her place with one finger. "Though I find I don't mind them. There's something honest about northern weather. It doesn't pretend to be anything other than what it is." Aldric found himself studying her expression. "Are you implying southern weather is dishonest?" "I'm implying southern everything is dishonest." A small smile. "All performance and politeness and saying one thing while meaning another. It's exhausting." "And you prefer directness?" "I prefer truth, even when it's uncomfortable." Her eyes met his, steady and clear. "Even when it's, I feel nothing." The words should have stung, should have felt like accusation. Instead, they felt like understanding. Aldric moved to the chair opposite hers, a decision that surprised him even as he made it. Most people would have left by now, claimed insult, returned south with stories of the cursed northern alpha who couldn't even feel his own mate bond. "I'm not most people." "No, you're not. Why did you really stay?" Lyanna set her book aside entirely, giving him her full attention. "Do you want the political answer or the true one?" "Is there a difference?" "Always." She tucked her legs beneath her, getting comfortable. "Politically, I stayed because breaking a mate bond, even an incomplete one, would damage relations between our territories. It would make me look weak, make you look crueler than you are, and it would waste the moon goddess's choice, which seems unwise." "And the true answer?" She was quiet for a long moment, and Aldric found himself leaning forward slightly, inexplicably invested in her response. "I refuse to believe fate is that cruel," she said finally. "The goddess chose you for you, not for politics, not for territory, for you. And I may not understand her reasoning yet, but I trust it. More than that," her gaze intensified, "I trust myself, and my instincts tell me that you're not incapable of love. You're just afraid of it." Aldric went very still. "I'm not afraid of anything." "Everyone's afraid of something, Alpha Blackmoor." Lyanna's voice was gentle but unyielding. "The question is whether they're brave enough to admit it." The fire crackled, wind howled outside the windows, and something in the space between them shifted, became charged with possibility neither could name. "What are you afraid of?" Aldric asked, surprising himself with the question. Lyanna didn't hesitate. "That you'll prove me wrong, that I'll stay and fight and choose you every single day, and you'll still feel nothing. that I'll give everything I have, and it won't be enough to wake whatever's sleeping inside you." She paused. "But fear has never stopped me before. Why should it now?" Aldric had no answer for that. They sat in silence for a while, the kind of comfortable quiet that usually only came after years of knowing someone. Outside, the storm raged. Inside, something far more dangerous began to build. Finally, Lyanna stood, gathering her book. "Good night, Alpha Blackmoor." "Aldric." She paused, looking back. "What?" "My name. When we're alone like this," he caught himself, uncertain why it mattered. "You can use my name." The smile that curved her lips was small but genuine. "Good night, Aldric." She left, and her scent lingered, pine and wildflowers, and something that made his chest ache in ways that had nothing to do with the curse. Aldric sat in the library long after she'd gone, staring into the fire and wondering when exactly his carefully controlled world had started to unravel. Winter deepened, and with it something Aldric refused to acknowledge. He found himself seeking Lyanna's presence, not consciously, not deliberately, but his feet carried him to whatever room she occupied. His eyes found her in crowds. His attention sharpened whenever her voice reached him through corridors or across crowded halls. He told himself it was duty. She was technically his mate, even if the bond remained incomplete. It was responsible to ensure she was settling in properly. Marcus didn't believe him. Neither, Aldric suspected, did his wolf. One afternoon, he found Lyanna in the training yard, watching the warriors practice. She stood at the edge of the yard, wrapped in furs, her expression thoughtful. "You disapprove?" Aldric asked, appearing beside her. She didn't startle. She'd grown accustomed to his sudden appearances, another thing that bothered him more than it should. "No, I'm fascinated." She gestured to the warriors. "Southern packs don't train their women this way. We're taught gentleness, submission, how to support our mates, not how to fight beside them." "That's foolish. An alpha's mate should be strong, capable of defending the pack if necessary." "I agree." She glanced at him, something like amusement in her eyes. "Which is why I've been considering asking Marcus to train me." Aldric's response was immediate and visceral. "No." Leona's eyebrows rose. "No?" "Marcus is too rough. His teaching methods are brutal, designed for warriors who've grown up fighting. You'd be injured within a week." "Then who would you suggest?" The answer came without thought. "Me." Silence. Lyanna turned to face him fully, and Aldric realized with uncomfortable clarity that he'd just volunteered to spend hours in close physical proximity with the woman whose scent already haunted his waking thoughts. "You would train me yourself?" She sounded genuinely surprised. Aldric's jaw tightened. "Yes. If you're to represent this pack, you should learn our methods properly. I won't have you injured by warriors who don't know how to temper their strength." It was logical, reasonable. It was also a lie, and they both knew it. "Very well," Lyanna said, her eyes sparkling with something that might have been triumph. "When do we start?" "Tomorrow. Dawn." She smiled. "I'll be ready." The first training session nearly broke him. Lyanna appeared in the private practice yard wearing fitted leather training clothes that made Aldric's mouth go dry. Her hair was braided back, her expression determined, and when she stretched, warming up muscles in ways that made him acutely aware of her body's lines and curves, he had to look away. "Where do we start?" she asked. Aldric forced his mind back to the purpose at hand. "Stance. Everything begins with how you stand." He moved behind her, and the proximity hit him like a physical blow. Her scent was stronger here, wildflowers and something warm beneath, something that made his wolf push against the constraints of his control. Feet shoulder-width apart, he instructed, his voice rougher than intended. Knees slightly bent. Center your weight. She adjusted, but not quite right. Aldric hesitated, then placed his hands on her hips, guiding her into position. The contact sent electricity through his palms. Lyanna went very still. "Like this?" Her voice was breathless. "Yes." He should step back, should put distance between them, but his hands remained on her hips, feeling the warmth of her through the leather, the slight tremor that betrayed she wasn't unaffected. "My shoulders?" Aldric's hands moved up, adjusting her posture, and he was acutely aware of every point of contact. The curve of her waist, the strength in her back, the way she fit against him like she'd been designed for exactly this position. "Better," he managed. They trained for an hour, Aldric teaching her basic defensive positions, how to break holds, where to strike for maximum impact, and through it all he was hyper-aware of her. The way she bit her lip when concentrating, the small sounds of effort she made, the sheen of sweat on her throat, the way she looked at him, not with fear or calculation, but with trust. By the time they finished, Aldric's control was fraying. "Same time tomorrow?" Lyanna asked, slightly breathless. "Yes." She smiled, warm and genuine, and left. Aldric stood in the empty practice yard, his hands still tingling from contact, his wolf howling for something he couldn't name. And for the first time, the silence in his chest felt less like curse and more like hunger. The jealousy came unexpected and fierce. A visiting Alpha from the Eastern Territories arrived seeking alliance discussions. Lord Bremen was young, charismatic, everything Aldric was not, warm where Aldric was cold, charming where Aldric was distant. And he noticed Lyanna immediately. Aldric watched from across the great hall as Brennan engaged her in conversation, watched Lyanna laugh, actually laugh, at something the Eastern Alpha said, watched Brennan lean closer, touch her arm lightly, his body language screaming interest. Something dark and violent rose in Aldric's chest. Not the mate bond, something else, something primal and possessive and utterly irrational. Marcus appeared at his elbow. "You're going to shatter that goblet." Aldric looked down. His grip on the metal cup had indeed dented it. He set it down carefully. "I don't know what you're talking about." "You're staring at them like you're deciding which part of Brennan to remove first." "He's being inappropriate." "He's being friendly. There's a difference." Paused. "Unless you're feeling something you didn't expect to feel." "I don't feel the bond." "I didn't ask about the bond. I asked what you're feeling." Aldric didn't answer, couldn't answer, because he didn't have words for the hot, possessive fury burning through his veins, didn't understand why the thought of Brennan touching Lyanna made him want to tear the Eastern Alpha apart with his bare hands. Across the hall, Lyanna glanced up, her eyes found his, and something passed between them, recognition, maybe, understanding. She excused herself from Brennan and walked directly to Aldric, her movements deliberate and unhurried. "Alpha Blackmoor," she said formally, though her eyes held warmth. "I believe we had training scheduled." They didn't. Their session had been that morning, but Aldric understood what she was doing, understood and felt something loosen in his chest. "Of course," he said, offering his arm. She took it, and they left the hall together, leaving Brennan watching with confused disappointment. Once they were alone in the corridor, Lyanna spoke quietly. "You were about to challenge him." "Was I?" "Yes, I could see it. So could everyone else." She stopped, turning to face him. "Why?" "He was being inappropriate. He was being polite. He touched you. On the arm, briefly, casually." Lyanna studied his face, and Aldric saw understanding dawn. Oh, you were jealous." "I don't get jealous. I don't feel the bond. Yes, I know." Her smile was soft, knowing. But you felt something, didn't you? Something that made you want to remove him from my presence, something possessive and irrational and completely unbidden. Aldric's jaw worked. I don't understand it. Then let me explain. Lyanna stepped closer, and her scent wrapped around him like a physical caress. You're starting to care, Aldric, not because fate commands it, but because you're choosing to. Because every morning we spend training, every evening we spend in the library, every moment of proximity and conversation and shared silence is building something the curse can't prevent. The curse blocks the mate bond, not human emotion, not choice, not the slow, deliberate process of actually getting to know someone and deciding they matter. Her hand came up, resting over his heart. Your wolf might not feel the pull, but the man is learning. Aldric covered her hand with his, the contact deliberate. And if I fail, if whatever this is isn't enough, then we'll deal with that when it comes. Her eyes held his. But Aldric, I don't think you're failing. I think you're terrified you're succeeding. She left him standing in the corridor, his hand still tingling from her touch, his chest aching with something that felt dangerously close to hope. The attack came during a full moon gathering. Aldric had been negotiating with representatives from 3 neighboring packs, discussing territorial boundaries and trade routes. Lyanna had been present. She'd started attending all his political meetings, her insights proving unexpectedly valuable. Then the screaming started. Rogues, a pack of them, organized and vicious, pouring through the keep's outer defenses like water through cracks. "Get her to safety!" Aldric roared at Marcus, even as he was transforming, his wolf massive and dark, built for violence. But when he looked for Lyanna, she wasn't running. She was fighting. Some warrior must have given her a blade because she held a short sword with surprising competence, defending a group of elderly pack members who'd been caught in the courtyard. Her form was rough. She'd only been training for weeks, but her determination was absolute. Aldric felt something crack in his chest. Not the bond, something else. Something that made him move faster than he'd ever moved, tearing through rogues like they were made of parchment, his entire focus narrowed to a single blazing imperative: protect her. He reached Lyanna just as a massive rogue wolf lunged for her exposed back. Aldric intercepted, jaws closing on the rogue's throat, ending the threat with brutal efficiency. Then another came, and another. And through it all, Aldric remained positioned between Lyanna and danger, his wolf operating on instincts that had nothing to do with logic and everything to do with the woman behind him. When the fight finally ended, rogues dead or fled, pack members securing the perimeter, Aldric transformed back. Lyanna stood trembling, covered in dirt and blood, none of it hers, her eyes wide with adrenaline. "You shouldn't have been there," Aldric said, his voice rough. "You should have run. They needed help. I needed you safe." The words burst out of him, raw and unguarded. "Do you understand? When I saw you fighting, saw you in danger." He stopped, because he did understand now. He understood perfectly. Lyanna's expression softened. "What did you feel?" Terror. The admission cost him. Absolute terror, not for the pack, not for the keep, for you. The thought of you being hurt, of losing you. His hands were shaking. "I don't feel the bond, Lyanna, but I feel you. Your absence would be unbearable. Your loss would break something in me that no curse could touch." She moved closer, her hand coming up to cup his face. "Say it." He struggled against a lifetime of emotional control. "I care for you, more than I thought possible, more than I know how to express." "Then show me." Aldric pulled her against him, his arms wrapping around him with desperate strength. Her fit perfectly, her head tucked beneath his chin, her heartbeat steady against his chest. I don't know how to do this, he admitted quietly. How to be what you need, what you deserve. You're already doing it. Lyanna's arms tightened around him. Every day, every moment you choose to stay present, to stay open, to let me in. That's how. They stood like that in the aftermath of violence, holding each other, and Aldric felt something he'd never experienced before. Peace. Not the empty silence of his curse, but the warm, living peace of connection, of mattering to someone, of being seen and chosen and wanted not for his power or position, but for himself. Lyanna, he murmured against her hair. Yes? I think, the words were foreign, terrifying. I think I'm falling in love with you. She pulled back just enough to meet his eyes, and her smile was radiant. I know. I've been watching it happen, waiting for you to realize. And you? The bond pulls on you, I know, but the bond is magic, Aldric. What I feel for you, she pressed her hand over his heart, that's choice. Every single day I choose you, not because fate commanded it, because you're worth choosing. And there in the courtyard beneath the full moon, surrounded by evidence of battle, Aldric kissed her. It was nothing like the claiming kisses described in pack lore, rough and possessive and driven by the mate bond's magic. It was gentler, deliberate, full of emotion rather than compulsion. It was choice. And when Aldric finally pulled back, his forehead resting against hers, he felt something shift deep in his chest. Not the snap of the mate bond, something better. The slow, sure recognition that he had found his home, not in power or pack or territory, but in the woman who'd refused to give up on him, who'd seen past his curse to the man beneath him, who'd taught him that love wasn't weakness, it was the bravest thing he'd ever done. "Take me inside," Lyanna whispered. "Please." And Aldric did. They went to his chambers, not hers. His. The room was as austere as the man who inhabited it, stone and iron and minimal comfort. But when Lyanna entered, she transformed it simply by being present. "Tell me what you want," Aldric said quietly, standing near the door as though afraid to move closer. "You. All of you. Not just the parts you think are acceptable." She moved toward him slowly. "I want the Alpha who terrifies his enemies, the man who trains me with infinite patience, the wolf who tore through rogues to protect me. All of it." "I'm not gentle, Lyanna." "I'm not asking you to be." She reached him, her hands coming up to rest on his chest. "I'm asking you to be present, to be here, to let yourself feel what you're feeling instead of analyzing it." Aldric's hands came up to frame her face, his touch reverent despite the calluses. "I've spent my entire life controlling everything, every emotion, every reaction, every moment. I don't know how to surrender that." "Then let me show you." She kissed him, soft at first, then deeper, her hand sliding into his hair, pulling him down to her. And Aldric, who had controlled armies, who had never surrendered to anything, let her lead. Let her pull him toward the bed. Let her undress him with deliberate care, her hands mapping scars and muscle with equal attention. Let her push him down onto the furs and position herself above him, her dark hair falling around them like a curtain. "I'm here," she whispered against his mouth. "I'm real. This is real. Not fate, not magic, just us, just choice." Aldric's hands came up to frame her face, forcing him to meet her eyes. "I love you." The words were simple, certain. "I love the man you are, the man you're becoming, the man who's learning that vulnerability isn't weakness, it's trust." Something in Aldrich shattered. All the walls he'd built, all the control he'd maintained, all the careful distance he'd cultivated for 28 years, it all came crashing down. "I love you," he gasped, the words torn from somewhere deep. "I love you so much it terrifies me. I don't know how to protect you from me, from this, from—" "You don't have to protect me from love, Aldric." Her hands framed his face, forcing him to meet her eyes. "You just have to let yourself feel it." And there, in the intimacy of shared vulnerability, something extraordinary happened. The mate bond, that mystical connection every wolf was supposed to feel, began to form. Not with the sudden snap of fate's command, but slowly, deliberately, like a thread being woven between them through conscious choice and emotional surrender. Aldric felt it this time. Felt her. Not just her presence in the room, but her presence in his soul, her emotions bleeding into his awareness. Love and desire and fierce protectiveness and absolute certainty. She felt him too. He saw it in her eyes. The moment when the one-sided pull became mutual, when his emotions, long dormant, began flowing back to her through the developing bond. "It's happening," she whispered, wonder in her voice. "Because I chose it." Aldric pulled her down into another kiss, this one deeper, claiming, "Because I chose you. Not because the goddess commanded it, because you're mine and I'm yours, and nothing, not curse or prophecy or blood eclipse, can change that." The night unfolded slowly. Aldric learned what it meant to surrender control, to let pleasure and emotion wash over him without analysis or restraint, to trust Lyanna with every vulnerable part of himself. And Lyanna showed him that love wasn't the weakness he'd always feared. It was strength, the courage to be seen, to be known, to be accepted not despite his flaws, but including them. When dawn finally broke over the northern territories, they lay tangled together, the mate bond humming between them, fragile still, newly formed, but real. "The pack will be shocked," Lyanna murmured against his chest. "Let them be shocked." Aldric's arms tightened around her. They expected the bond to form through magic. Instead, it formed through something far more powerful. What's that? Choice. Patience. Two people deciding they were worth the effort of actually knowing each other. He pressed a kiss to her hair. "The bond is forming, Lyanna. I feel it now. I feel you. But I want you to know, even if it hadn't formed, even if the curse had proven stronger, I would have chosen you anyway, every day, for the rest of my life." Tears glistened in her eyes. "That's the most romantic thing anyone has ever said to me." "I'm not good at romance." "You're better than you think." She kissed him softly. "You just needed someone to show you it was safe." 3 months later, the Northern Territories celebrated a proper mating ceremony. But this time, when Aldric stood before the altar with Lyanna at his side, the pack didn't whisper about curses or impossibilities. They witnessed something far more powerful. An alpha who had learned to love, not through magical compulsion, but through deliberate choice. Through the slow, patient work of actually knowing another person and deciding they were worth keeping. When Aldric claimed Lyanna before the pack, his bite gentle but certain on her shoulder, the bond that had been forming over months finally solidified completely. The pack felt it, that rare, precious thing, a bond formed not by fate alone, but by two people choosing each other consciously, consistently, courageously. "I was told I would never feel the mate bond," Aldric said, his voice carrying through the hall. "And in a sense, that was true. I don't feel what you feel, that magical snap, that instantaneous recognition. What I feel is better. I feel 3 months of mornings training together. I feel hundreds of conversations about everything and nothing. I feel the slow realization that this woman," he turned to Lyanna, love naked in his ice-blue eyes, "this brilliant, stubborn, patient woman is the best thing that ever happened to me. Not because the moon goddess commanded it, but because she is." Lyanna's smile was radiant. The curse didn't prevent you from loving Aldric. It just meant you had to learn how. And in doing so, you gave me something far more precious than fate. You gave me choice. You gave me the certainty that when you say you love me, it's because you've decided I'm worth it, not because magic told you so. The hall erupted in celebration, and later, when they stood together on the battlements, watching spring finally arrive in the north, ice melting, green things beginning to emerge from winter's grip, Aldric realized something profound. The curse hadn't been cruel. It had been a gift, because it forced him to learn what most people never understood, that love built consciously was stronger than love granted unconsciously, that choosing someone every day was more powerful than being chosen once by fate. "What are you thinking?" Lyanna asked, leaning into his warmth. "That I'm grateful," Aldric said simply, "for the curse, for you, for every moment that led us here. Even the difficult ones? Especially those." He pulled her closer. "They taught me that vulnerability isn't weakness, that emotion isn't liability, that the strongest thing an alpha can do is admit he doesn't have all the answers and find someone worth learning them with." Lyanna kissed him, soft and sweet. "I love you, Aldric Blackmoor." "I love you, Aldric Blackmoor." And saying it, feeling it, knowing it was true and earned and chosen, filled the silence in his chest with something that felt like home. The alpha who couldn't feel love had learned, and in learning, he'd found something more valuable than any bond fate could forge. He'd found truth. He'd found choice. He'd found her. To every soul who picked up this story, thank you from the deepest part of my heart. You are the reason these words exist. Whether you found this at the perfect moment or stumbled upon it by chance, I believe stories have a way of finding the people who need them most, and I hope this one leaves something warm and lasting with you. Love, messy, complicated, and fierce, is always worth fighting for, and so are you. Never stop believing in your own story. If this journey moved you, please show your love by giving it a like, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss what comes next. There is so much more magic waiting for you. Come explore more worlds and stories from moon-kissed souls, where every tale is written with the stars and your heart in mind.